Hidden words cause most relationships to break. What do you do to the raw meat or vegetables that you buy from your local supermarket? Do you consume it directly, or do you prepare it first by cleaning it and using various sauces, dressings, or spices to suit your taste? A vast majority of relationships can be saved by focusing on communication. There's a lot of advice out there on how to communicate positively and assertively. But when it comes to listening or receiving comments or feedback from a bad communicator who we care about, just like how you would prepare food according to your taste, you have to intercept their words and then massage them to suit your taste. It is the massaged and edited version of the comments that you would then feed your heart. Doing this will help you to be in a much better and calmer state to handle the feedback and coach others on how to communicate more effectively. Tune into this week's episode where we will share techniques on how to add an interception, massaging, topping, or sweetening layer between your ears and heart. We will also share tips on how to give better feedback and then conclude with one common misconception around fate and divine decree. You're not a good mother. You never wanted to marry me. You love your wife more than us. Why don't you live with your parents? Why don't you live with your friends? You can never learn. You're never home. You never help me. You don't know how to communicate. You never cook for me. You never help out with kids and so on. These are some of the common complaints that we hear during relationship coaching. Before going into how the person saying these words could have acted more responsibly and how they could have acted and used the words for their own benefit, let's take a look at what the receiver can do. Firstly, realize that many times what people say is not just. It is dependent on their emotions, stress level, personal upbringing, influence from Satan, and so on. Just like how you would prepare food items by cleaning them, dressing them, and feeding your body after you have dressed and topped them, you can intercept and prepare the words before letting them hit your heart and play with your emotions. It takes effort and conditioning, but it is possible and much more important than preparing your food. Whenever processing a feedback, consider if you can fit in the following phrases somewhere in the feedback. I feel like. It feels like. Did you mean to say? Would you explain why you did that or say that? It made me feel. Right? So the idea is, let's say if somebody is saying, you're not a good mother. Change that to the following. When you do something like that, it makes me feel you're not a good mother. Sometimes I feel you're not like a good mother. Right? So you can always massage and change their words to be more just and to be more appropriate and to make it related to the way that they feel rather than an absolute truth about yourself. Once again, take their words and make it sound to you in a way that explains and expresses the way that they feel and not an absolute truth about yourself. That is very, very important to do. Okay, so once you have done that, you have intercepted, massaged, and changed or added to their words, and then you will interpret them in your hearts. You will be much more calmer. You'll be much more able to handle the feedback and to respond accordingly. Now, as you come to the response state, consider these things. You can rephrase their feedback and share it with them. You mean that you feel such and such, right? Or you can use that to coach them how they could have given their feedback. Another thing to notice is that you are not required to respond right away. You may feel like it, but you're not required to. You can just say, thank you for your feedback. I'm sorry it makes you feel that way. What can I do to make you feel better? Or you can say, you know what, this is not a good time to talk about this. Why don't we talk about this after dinner or after lunch tomorrow or after breakfast tomorrow? Change it, set up another time that you would address that, but maybe not at this time. Or it doesn't seem like we're in a good mood to discuss this. Can I do something else to make you feel better? And when you're ready to discuss that, you can ask them to clarify, hey, what makes you feel this way? What can I do better to make you feel better? Right? So for example, if it's an issue of the husband saying, I don't feel respected, you don't respect me, ask him, what are the 3 top things that make you feel disrespected? And he may say that, hey, you know what, you don't agree with me, or you argue with me. Then you can go into an example or understand how he would like you to express your disagreement. How would he like you to be assertive about your choices? And so on and so forth. Now, we're not saying that to remain in a toxic relationship and always change the way that people talk to you. That's not the topic of this episode. We're talking about how, if you want to help the other person change, if you want to influence them, if you want to have a positive relationship, how can you contribute being a smart listener? Now, on the other hand, look at how the creator, right? So when we talk about the creation, they can be unjust, they can use inappropriate words. But look at how Allah, the creator, and his messenger teach us. When they're talking about the wrongdoers, the hypocrites, the people who are ungrateful, the people who run away from the mercy of Allah and so on, they are actually describing their beliefs, their false hopes, and their evil and unjust actions. Right? So realize how we are hurt by people's comments and feedback and their perception and their feelings about us. Do we really care that much or more about how Allah think about us, or how Allah see us, or how we stand in front of Allah, or how we stand in front of the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? We can take a look at that by looking at our choice of words, our actions, our belief, how grateful we are, how patient we are, how obedient, how submissive, how reliant are we upon Allah. And that is much, much more important than worrying about how people feel about us. Right? So think about this, if we would do something or we would post something on social media and then we would get a humbling response from our family or co-workers or business partners or clients, how would we feel? But what do we think about the response of Allah from our actions? How does Allah sees our actions, our words, and so on? Let's really be concerned that how are we concerned about the creator versus how we are concerned about the creation. Okay, now going back to the person who is speaking, the person who is giving the feedback. Look, regarding the choice of words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who has created us, the one who is completely knowledgeable about us and our emotions, look what he says in his book, the Quran. وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُوا الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنزَغُ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ كَانَ لِلْإِنسَانِ عَدُوًّا مُبِينًا. And tell my servants to say which is best. Indeed, Satan induces dissension among them. Indeed, Satan is ever to mankind a clear enemy. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, advising us, ordering us here to be careful about the choice of words. Right? Because Satan is going to take that as an opportunity and direct us or incite us to misinterpret the words. So when we are communicating our feelings to another person, remember these points. You always want to give them a positive identity. If you associate a negative identity such as you are a dishonest person, you are a liar, and so on and so forth, there's nothing to influence, right? So if you associate that they have positive attribute, they have a positive identity, if you say that I know you're a person of integrity, I know you're a person of honor, I know you love me, and I know you would do your best to help me understand and not hurt me. Can you explain what do you mean by saying this? Or can you explain this and that? Or do you know when you are always late, or when you're late, I feel I'm not important enough? Can you explain? Can you help me understand why you are late? Right? I have been noticing that for the last few times whenever we had to do this, you were always late. Can we change the time of this activity? Can I set up a reminder for you on your phone, and so on and so forth? Right? That is totally different than you saying that, you know what, I don't think you love me, I don't think you care about me, you're always late. right? The next point is never associate a negative motive, such as you're always late because you don't care, right? And so on and so forth. So always give them a positive motive or ask for why something happens. So if you give them a positive identity and a positive motive, then they would help themselves accountable to good qualities such as fulfilling their promises, such as being kind and so on and so forth. And if they're not doing that, that means there is some sort of a misunderstanding, and misunderstandings can be clarified. Now, for the last part of our episode, as we always do, we focus on spiritual mastery. We focus on strengthening our relationship with the Creator, the Lord. So now we have been talking about the power of dua in the past few episodes, which is to ask Allah for our needs, our wants, guidance, facilitation, empowerment, and so on and so forth. There's a common misconception from some people, and that comes from lack of understanding or lack of knowledge, that they are not seeing dua, which is a means for getting our goals, right? But it's a very unique type of mean because it is metaphysical, right? So there are physical means. So if you're thirsty, you're going to go and have a drink of water. That is a physical mean to quench your thirst, right? Likewise, if you're hungry and you need nutrition, you would go and eat food. That's a physical mean, right? The dua, it's a metaphysical mean. It's a spiritual mean, if you will. So they would say that, hey, what's the point of making dua if everything has been decreed? So just like things are decreed with their causes, with the asbab, with the means, right? So if you eat, then it's decreed for you that your hunger will be removed and that you will be provided nutrition. Likewise, other things can be associated and decreed with the mean of dua, with the cause of dua. So if you bring the causes, if you bring the means, the results would follow. And that does not go against destiny. So the point being that a smart person would realize that just like there are physical means, Allah has put in metaphysical means. From the metaphysical means, there is the concept and the act of asking Allah. There is the concept and the act of doing righteous deeds, doing deeds that are beloved to Allah, and so on and so forth. So realize that decrees are decreed with means. You bring the means and you will have the result. You bring another mean and there will be a different result. Okay? So for example, if you bring good deeds, you will earn the love of Allah and you will earn paradise. If you bring evil deeds and persist in them, you will go towards the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if you bring the evil deeds and then cleanse them with sincere repentance, you can go towards the love of Allah and paradise again. Right? So always think about what can I do, what means, what causes can I take to bring the results that I desire, that I truly want. So let us summarize. Number one, we talked about how to be a smart listener. We talked about preparing, massaging, dressing, cooking, marinating, barbecuing, adding sweeteners or toppings to the words that we receive, and let it be massaged and prepared before it reaches our hearts and plays with our emotions. When giving feedback, use a positive identity for the person you're talking to. Give them a positive motive. Ask for clarification. Use the metaphysical means, the spiritual means for your success.